Hey guys, welcome back to Homemade Homestead. We've got bunches to show you, so we're just gonna jump right into it. Right off the bat, I'm gonna let you know that I'll be your garden tour guide today. Rachel's inside with the kiddos. It just seems like it's kind of madness in our house right now with 3 kiddos and 1 on the way. She's trusting me to do the garden tour today. There's fires around in our own state as well as fires in California that we've been getting smoke from, but I would have thought that with the last couple of days, we've just had downpour and really phenomenal rain. I would have thought that would have washed most of the sky clear, but it still is just lingering. It seems to even be worse. But that's not what we're wanting to talk about. Let's talk about our garden. I'm just gonna start at our fruit trees and work our way back into the garden. We're super excited for some of these. It's kind of hit and miss depending on the fruit tree, which ones are bearing and which ones aren't. We don't have any peaches, but everything else seems to be doing okay. We've got a few apples here, as you can see. They're nowhere near ready, but a lot of them are producing. There's this one and that one. No peaches, which is kind of a bummer. Maybe next year. But our pear trees are looking awesome. I don't know if we showed you all these pears that we're growing, but this year, both this pear tree and this one have just been loaded with pears. This one looks a lot better. I'm not exactly sure when they're ready. They're kind of small, but there's a lot of them, which we're so excited about. And last but not least, for the trees, here's our almond tree. Let's see if we can find an almond. Here we go. There's one. Oh, here's another one right there. Seems that once you find one, it's a little bit easier to find the rest. They're surprisingly difficult for me to see though. So you might not have been able to tell from that, but this tree has almonds all over it. It's just covered with it. But the bushiness makes it a little bit difficult to see. Did a little bit of research because I realized I have no idea how to harvest almonds, and it's really cool how they work. You're supposed to wait. The almonds, they grow in these shells that are all green and fuzzy, and what you need to do is wait until there's a split in those, kind of like a walnut shell. They'll have that split in the middle, and that way you know they're close. When they get to that point, you know that it's soon time to harvest. And eventually they'll drop to the ground. If you give your tree a little bit of a shake, they are supposed to drop to the ground, and then you're supposed to let them sit for a day or two to dry out a little bit, and then you go collect them. And you crack them open just like a walnut, and there's your almonds. This is all just from research that we did online. Again, it's our first year. I never knew that whether or not to expect almonds off this tree. So we're gonna see how that goes. Here's one patch of dirt that used to be one of our potato patches. We have since harvested since the last tour. Unfortunately, we weren't able to bring you guys along for that. But there's this, as well as this one small patch out by the chicken coop that we've dug. Fortunately, we were able to get these things harvested right before the downpours came, because that makes it so you can't dig. Next up, we've got all of our onions. These things have been really doing well lately. Again, I've been really grateful for the rain the last couple days. It's softened up the ground really nicely. It was a little bit of a pain, but we finally got all of the onions freed up from the weeds. If you guys will remember the last tour we had, these things were just overgrown, and it was a real hunt through the weeds to find where the onions were. But they look like they've bounced back pretty well. I tried to transplant some that were growing so closely together that they were just too close. That didn't pan out so well. Fortunately, we've got a bunch of others, and now that the ground is softened with all the water we've been getting, I need to come out and bare those bulbs so that the bulbs will continue to grow. Back here, just across the way, still buried in weeds, we've got some broccoli coming. That actually looks like it might be ready to harvest. Just out of curiosity. Oh my goodness. That doesn't taste half bad. Give it a little bit of ranch. That's wonderful. That's gonna be, I need to get here and pick that. Just across the way from the onions, we've got the beets. They're still overgrown with weeds, and honestly, we're not sure whether or not we're even gonna bother coming out and trying to free them of weeds or get them, because we don't really care for the beets. We might try to harvest a bunch of beet greens. We'll see. Here we got our cabbages. We're really super excited about these. We've already harvested one or maybe even two of them. They have just been big and beautiful. Give you a frame of reference. This is a smaller one than the one we harvested. And it's looking like they're all basically ready. But so far, we haven't had much problem with bugs. We cut that one open that we harvested and it was just delicious. We had it with some Mexican food. Overall, not a bad average for all the cabbages that Rachel planted. It looks like we're gonna get most of them harvested. This one split a little bit from probably from the rain. Some of it might be still salvageable. And once again, we put these cattle panels up, much like fences of previous years, in hopes of being able to keep them trellised with clear walkways in between. It's just impossible to do that if you don't keep right on top of it, because especially with this rain, they have just gone crazy, and it's not long before they go wild and they cover up your walk path. That's okay though, you just have to be a little bit more careful. I was gonna wait to talk about the tomatoes until the end, you know, save the best for last, but I was right here and I just had to show you guys all these different things. You know, we didn't have a great tomato year last year, but this year it looks like they have just done phenomenally. We already picked some Chadwick tomatoes, which were just delightful. If you've never had a fresh picked garden tomato, just find somebody that has their own tomatoes that they're growing. If you know somebody that has grown their own tomatoes, get in touch with that person and get a taste of that homegrown tomato in your mouth. Oh my goodness, there's nothing like it. You cannot find that in the store, no matter what people tell you. It's just never the same as a good homegrown fresh tomato. And look at these things. A lot of our plants are just loaded, and pretty good size too. Every once in a while, as you can see, you'll get some what this is called is blossom end rot, just at the bottom of the tomato. That thing will rot out. You can try to salvage some of the tomato depending on how bad it is. This one isn't too bad. Once this ripens, we might just go ahead and pick it and just cut that part off and see if you can salvage the rest of the tomato. In case you don't know about blossom end rot, what causes that is when your tomatoes have a deficiency in calcium. What we like to do to try to mitigate that is you can add some oyster shells, or we also like to use the crushed up eggshells from our chickens. That's really good, and you just sprinkle it on the ground. It should help cut down on that blossom end rot. Hello, Mr. B. So good to see you. Where are all your buddies? This right here is chamomile. That has done really well this year. Rachel just barely planted these fresh plants. This isn't even stuff that's come back this year, and it looks like it's ready to be picked again. The kids should be so happy about that. This section of tomatoes are what we like to call our Goth Romas. That's not the official name for them. We're not really sure what is, but the last name of the person that gave us these seeds to begin with, their last name is Goth, so that's what we like to call them to distinguish from our other Romas. And these tomatoes started off the year as our saddest looking patch. We weren't sure if this was gonna do much of anything, but it looks like maybe the rain helped it out. It bounced right back, and I'm already seeing tomatoes pop up all over, and they're looking not too shabby in size either. These are a more meaty tomato, so they'll be good for like spaghetti sauces or salsa. Not so good for juice, but we like to use our Kellogg's for things like that, and they're coming along nicely. Chadwick tomatoes, they're just loaded, and our corn has just boomed up, and it looks like it's upwards of 7-8 feet tall all of a sudden. And there was a bunch of silk growing on it, Rachel pointed out to me yesterday that that stuff is starting to dry out. So hopefully we should be able to get some ears of corn here soon. Let's see. Ooh, look at that. That looks pretty. In fact, I'm gonna pick that one because it looks like there was some bugs in the top. First ear of corn. We like to give the first fruits of each one of our crops back to the Creator in thanks for the harvest. So we'll be sure to give that to somebody that appreciates corn. The tomatillos look like they're doing pretty darn well. All of a sudden they're covered with tomatillos. We have 2 of these plants, which if you grow tomatillos, you need 2 in order for them to pollinate each other. And they both look like they've got some good tomatillos on them. They can be deceptive sometimes though. You have what's this, like this pod on the outside, and inside the tomatillo itself can be deceptively small, like right up here. It looks like a tomato, and that's about as far as I can feel it, right there. All the peppers seem to have really taken off. Both, I don't know if we have any bells here, or if they're mostly just jalapenos. Rachel's already harvested some of those and eaten them. She says we actually have spicy jalapenos. In years past, we've had the darndest time trying to grow jalapenos that are spicy. I'm not sure what the difference makes. If you guys know something about jalapenos, be sure to drop a comment down in the comment section below. Let us know if you know anything about what makes them spicy some years but not. This year it was super spicy, so we're hoping that they'll just be loaded because Rachel really likes that spice. I'm continually astounded by the cucumbers this year. Seems like every time we come out here, Rachel's picking like a half a bucket full. The one year that we've been able to grow cucumbers, the first year, they're just loaded. And we've already harvested, like I was saying, maybe 2 or 3 buckets worth. Had some of them in salads, turned a lot of them into pickles, and they taste great. I tell you, it's just so exciting what Father has been able to do with this cucumber patch. Almost done. We're winding our way around. We come to our melon patch. As you can see down here, we have watermelons. This variety here is known as the the rattlesnake watermelon, and they're quite a bit more elongated. I'll show you one, like right here. This is our biggest one. You notice it's thinner and longer rather than the nice round ones that you typically see, but they still taste phenomenal. We've had one, and they're quite seedy, but we just love them. And a lot of our crops, just for whatever reason, seem to be so prolific this year. And these melons are no exception. It seems they're just loaded with watermelons everywhere. Like there's 1, let's see, 1, 2, I just spotted a couple over here I hadn't seen before. 3, 4, let's see, 5, 6, 7, they're just everywhere. 8. That's a lot of water. 9. There's got to be at least a dozen of those rattlesnake watermelons out here. We also have cantaloupe interspersed. Didn't really mean to have it that way, but you know how these viney plants do. They just sort of tend to go as far as they can possibly get. We've even got some extending out into the lawn, but yeah, melons all over the place. A lot of rattlesnake. We have a few cantaloupe. We haven't quite gotten into the cantaloupe to see just how well they're doing, but we do have at least a few. They're just doing so great this year. Wrapping our way around here, you maybe can see some of our green beans. If you'll remember the last tour we had out here, these were looking pretty sad, very burned looking. We tried to sprinkle some coffee grounds on them. That's good for nitrogen, which is what these kinds of plants need. They didn't quite bounce back like we had hoped, but on the other hand, there were some that did great at bouncing back, and we've even got some blossoms on them. They've wound their way all the way up as far as they can go on the fence, and they look like they'll be okay. We'll still get a few green beans, hopefully. And I just realized this is where all the bees are. A lot of these are volunteer, all these sunflowers. In fact, I think all of them are volunteer this year. We didn't purposely plant any of them. They just came up from ones that must have dropped off of our mammoth plants last year. But we are so glad we have them because apparently it's really brought the pollinators. So happy to see these guys. And if you come down here below the sunflowers, here we can see some butternut squash. Right there, there. And we've worked our way over to the slightly more sad portion of our garden. That's these squash. You can see if we look a little bit closer. See those bugs? Those little gray things that just scampered away? Those are squash bugs. We've mentioned them in previous videos before. Unfortunately, we did our best, but we could just not keep on top of those things this year, and they've kind of just demolished a good couple of these plants. These out here behind look okay, but the good news is we've gotten a ton of squash already off of these plants, so we don't feel as bad as we normally would. We've just gotten loads and loads of squash out of all of these, but we just decided it was a losing battle and we're gonna let the squash bugs have these. It's still sad to see though. They can really just take out a plant, it seems, in a matter of a couple days. But we can't end this garden tour on that kind of a sad note. That wouldn't be fair to our garden. Father has been really good and taking care of this garden despite one of the driest years we've had in a couple decades, and it has flourished in the midst of it all somehow, miraculously. The squash is probably the saddest crop out there aside from maybe the green beans, but you saw there's loads of harvest still on the plants and it's just waiting to be picked. So it has been a great garden this year despite everything. We're super grateful for the harvest that's coming soon. Well guys, I think that about does it for our August garden tour. Thank you so much for sticking with me as I showed you all that stuff. It was a lot of different plants to go through, I know. But sure appreciate you guys watching. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And feel free to drop a comment down in the comment section below. We really enjoy getting to know you guys and talk with you all. And I know we don't get to our channel as often as we would like to, but we're trying to do better a little bit. Once the craziness dies down, we'll try to get back on it a little bit more. But I think that about does it for our video. And we look forward to seeing you guys and hearing from you guys later. But until then, we hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you again real soon. Take it easy.